Right, back on Radio Row, Talk Sport, bringing you live coverage from Super Bowl 59, building up to the big game on Sunday between the Eagles and the Chiefs. We've got live and exclusive in-stadium coverage on Talk Sport and on our YouTube channel, talkSPORT Endzone. But delighted to say, joining us now, there's plenty to get into with this man. Charlie Batch, we enjoyed our time last year, former Steelers quarterback, two-time Super Bowl winner as well. But first, before we get into that, talk to us about the foundation, man, and the work you're doing.
Oh, we're excited. Yes, we actually, Best of the Batch Foundation, that's a foundation that my family created, and it was one of the things we focus on education, and we service 3,800 kids annually throughout southwestern PA. So we focus on our STEAM programs, after-school programs, and super excited about everything that's going on. As we celebrated 25 years, we just went from 5,300 square feet to 33,000 square feet.
Wow.
So we did a big ribbon cutting last year, April of 2024. And the kids that were walking through the building, they don't want to leave, which is why we built it. So super excited about all the support that we've had throughout the years, and we look forward to the next 25 years. So anybody who wants to find out about it, they can go to batchfoundation.org. You can see all the programs that we run. We love to collaborate with anyone because we don't do all things well. And if people forget what that foundation website is, put Charlie Batch Foundation. It'll take you right to the foundation. So we look forward to working and collaborating with many people out there.
I think when people ask me what I love about the NFL, and there's so much, and part of it is the violence and the hits and the fun of it, and part of it is the great sport and everything. But I always say people's stories, something that attracts me to sport. You go through the draft every year, and because of the nature of getting into college on scholarships, getting that then opportunity to go to the NFL, you see a lot of people who come from difficult backgrounds who have that. So many of those amazing stories, and I feel like the NFL is a sport where, more than any other I've seen or worked in, where people have foundations, where they give back, where there's so much focus on that. Is that something for you that you've just when you get to have the career you have, that you really want to focus on, that you're I need to put myself into this?
Yeah, a lot of people are different, right? Everybody passionate about different things, but you have a lot of players who are out there doing a lot of great things in the community, but those stories don't get told because they're not the A-plus players, right? And when you're not that way, you have to go out there and keep making people aware of what your passions are. And I fell in that category, right? You sit back and continue to embrace that, but also as the success that we've had, making sure that we're mentoring those younger generations to make sure, hey, if you're interested in this, these are the things that can help you do that, because we want to see longevity, right? Not just the point of your career, 2 to 3 years. We want to make sure that now, can you do that 10, 20, 30 years and continue to make that impact in the community? And there are a lot of people out there that are doing those things well, but it starts by you understanding you're not just a football player. And you have to go out there and build meaningful relationships in the community. And when you do so, you never know where that may take you. And I was fortunate enough to be in Pittsburgh, and number one, being from Pittsburgh, playing for the Steelers organization, and people taking me under their wings and introducing me to people to make sure that they allowed me to do it. And we just want to make sure we reciprocate that to the younger generation to make sure that they sustain once they create the foundation, but also making sure from a longevity standpoint.
Love it. Look, let me talk to you a little bit about the role player in the Super Bowl, right? You went to 2, you come away with 2 rings, and obviously it's one of those things where it's the ultimate team sport, but how do you approach it when you're a guy who doesn't necessarily know if they're going to take a single snap in a Super Bowl, if they don't know if you're going to be a support guy, and yet you know that you're one play away from potentially being in there in the most important position in all of sport? How do you mentally prepare for that, and how do you make sure that you're being a great support guy whilst also preparing for that moment should it come?
It's the toughest position to be in. When you're the starter, hey, you're starting in this game, you hope to finish it. But if for whatever reason the starter goes down and you have to go in the game, number one, you better know your assignment. You better not be the person that is now going to say, you're the reason that we didn't win this game because the starter went down, you weren't able to do your job. And that's the toughest job for a backup quarterback, because you don't know. And you watch the game differently. Number one, you're focusing on the game, but you're also focusing on the position too. Because everybody, once the ball's released, you're looking at it, but then also, okay, is he getting up? I know he took a big shot. And if he does, if he's not able to get up, then all of a sudden now you got to get yourself ready, unpeel the layers, get yourself warmed up as quickly as you can and go into the game. And that's a tough position to be in. And that's just something that you never want to wish injury on anybody, but also you better know your assignment and making sure that you don't go out there and disappoint.
Do you feel like you watch the game slightly differently, not just from that perspective, but also say in the way that an offensive coordinator would, that you're looking for defensive tendencies, you're looking for where the pressure's coming from, you're looking for so that you know that, hold on, okay, if I'm watching this now, I can see they're bringing a lot of pressure off the right, or they're stunting to this side, or they're bringing safety blitzes, or whatever it might be. but I know it's going to be very different from watching from here at the 50-yard line to watching from under center and having to catch all that from there. Like, is it? I feel like it's more like almost an analytical way you have to watch the game.
Well, you watch the game differently. And when you look at it, and I say watch the game differently because you have to learn to watch it from the sideline angle, understanding what they're doing from the end zone. Because the quarterback's view is end zone to end zone. But yet when you're watching the game, you're watching it from the sideline. So you don't actually get the true vision of what the quarterback is seeing directly on. So you have to learn to do that. But then ultimately, as you're watching the game, you're watching it, understanding the game plan. What checks would you make, making sure the quarterback is doing those checks, making sure you're taking that coaching onto the field. But then if you, for whatever reason, you do get into the game, you've seen the defense and what they're trying to do. So if you are now inserted into the lineup, you better go out there and execute, because now they're going to treat you a little differently. Defensively, be based off, if they don't think you're warmed up, they're going to blitz you a little bit because they want you to run around. Or if, so it's definitely a cat and mouse game that happens throughout the course of it. But again, it's more or less just being that eyes on the starting quarterback, but also making sure that you're able to do your job for whatever reason you had to go in.
Let's talk a little bit about Pittsburgh, that you obviously know very well. Mike Tomlin, a coach you know very, very well. This point that they're at right now, where they've had this insane run under Mike Tomlin of 2 decades of playoffs and never having a losing season, and yet since that 3 Super Bowl run, 2 wins, haven't been back to the big game. Well, they've lost their last 5 first-round matches in the playoffs. Is it a city that can continue to sustain just being good enough to get there, or do you think there has to be something happen? They need to kickstart something to take that next step to push on to being a Super Bowl team again?
Well, something needs to happen for sure, and people just aren't content as far as having a winning season. When you talk about Steelers Nation, it's always been, hey, Super Bowl contender, being able to play in this game when it matters. And when that doesn't happen, guess what? Now the rumbling is starting to occur, because you see the players like Cam Hayward, you see T.J. Watt, these guys who are getting up in age, but also they want to play, deep into the playoffs in this game. So what is missing? And I think for me, when I look at this team, the pieces that are missing, they're missing on their first-round picks. And when you miss on the first-round picks from 2018 to where we are now, they haven't extended anybody on a 5th-year option. So when you don't have those, these are your guys that are supposed to be your veteran leaders in the locker room carrying the next generation in. And right now there's a lapse that is happening, and that's why you're seeing things that have occurred before, meaning they've never had to go sign free agents because they've always built through the draft. But when you're missing the draft, now outsiders are coming in trying to learn that Steelers culture, and that blend right now is not working for whatever reason.
And I think one of the key things is going to be what they do at the quarterback position. It's obvious to state, I'd said it already, most important position in sport, right? The noise internally is that they're going to keep one of those guys around in Russell or in Justin Fields, and then maybe try and build for the future, draft a guy, whatever that might be. But there's no home run hit, right? There's no home run free agent right now. There's no home run in the draft. So, I mean, if you're the organization, do you just have to keep drafting somebody every single year and waiting for a guy to hit? Like, how can you solve that position when there is no obvious way of doing it?
Well, obviously you have to develop somebody at some point, right? And Steelers Nation has become spoiled because you have Ben Roethlisberger for 18 years, right? So, but they have to figure that out. And right now it's just patches that are patchwork that's happening. But when you see what's going on in this roster, both quarterbacks aren't going to be back. You're not going to see Justin Fields. You're not going to see Russell Wilson in both together into that quarterback room again. Right now, and this is something that I said coming into the season, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for one of those two. The other one won't be here. And right now you're starting to see that. And the Steelers have a tough situation as it relates to, do you take the temporary patch, with Russell Wilson, or do you not potentially now say, hey, we have a guy in Justin Fields for the future beyond 2, 3, 4 years? So it's a tough decision to make, but either way, they're not going to be able to capitalize on the fact that they didn't have to spend a lot of money in the quarterback position because of Denver paying Russell Wilson's salary last year. So it's a tough conversation to have. Both, it's a long way of saying both of them won't be in the room. They're going to have to make that tough decision. And when you look at just the quarterbacks that are out there, I can't see them paying a lot for Sam Darnold. You have too many holes at this particular point to do it. Not to say that Sam Darnold's not worthy enough to do that, but they have too many holes in this particular equation that they have to fill. But either way, you talk about the quarterback, you got to extend T.J. Watt, you have a big cap number with Minkah Fitzpatrick. A lot of money is in that defense. They have to figure this out on the other side. That's why I'm glad I'm not the general manager at this point.
Absolutely. And then talk to us a bit about Coach Tomlin. Like, as a two-part question, the first being, what was he like for you as a man, as a leader? But then beyond that, is he a guy you back to continuing to be able to develop this team in terms of like bringing that young talent through, making sure they do, if they have to move on from guys because of the cap space, like he's the guy to keep developing this team and keep moving it forward?
Oh, he absolutely is. And I think when you look at it, and that's the reason why Mr. Rooney, Steelers owner, he extended him before the season. So you know he's going to be here because he wants to be here. The message is still being delivered the right way. The players are buying into it. Players want to play for him. So those are things that are to his advantage. And the messaging is still the same. He wants to win a Super Bowl. So I think when you have that, the players are buying into it. That's one thing that's a positive. But then when you look on the other side, you're just saying, okay, what's going to happen down the line, because you haven't seen go this long. And of course, he always talks about, the players having to tote the baggage for him. He wants to tote it himself, meaning they haven't won a playoff game. And when you don't win a playoff game, guess what? We're going to continue to talk about it. The outside media is going to talk about it until you change that. But also, you're playing in a tough division. You got Joe Burrow.
A tough division in a conference that has all 4 of the top 4 quarterbacks in it right now.
Right.
Like it's rough out there if you've not got your guy.
You're talking Joe Burrow. You're talking Lamar Jackson. These two, you got to see them twice a year. So you continuously have to evolve to get better because they're getting better.
I guess it's can they compete with those guys right now without finding the answer is going to be the huge question from Pittsburgh. You mentioned Mr. Rooney there, and rumor has it he is going to be in town this Friday. Big announcement hopefully coming that Pittsburgh Steelers, who invested a lot of time with their familial connections into developing a fan base in Ireland. We might see the first ever game in Ireland, Steelers Nation coming out to Dublin. I mean, if that is what's happening, incredible. But knowing that fan base as well as you do, how much can we expect them to show up and show out when we hit September, October time in Dublin?
Well, there's always been a lot of activity that's been happening in Ireland. That goes back to Ambassador Rooney in 2008. And always wanting to do things out there, whether that's football camps, just being, making the people aware for what Steelers Nation is doing, not just in Pittsburgh, we're looking to do in Ireland. Dan Rooney, who's his arch son, was out there doing different events. So multiple players have been out there participating in that. And earlier this year in August, and people didn't catch it, we were on a pregame show, and I do color commentating for the Steelers throughout, and Mr. Rooney was actually interviewed, and he said, I think it's about that time that we may have to play in Ireland. And I'm like, did he just give us something right here back in August? And lo and behold, here we are now, and to your point, Friday, a major decision that's happening. So playing off what he said in August to where it is now, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. And if it does happen, they are super excited about bringing the fan base, bringing the team over to Ireland to play a football game. So if it is, I promise you, Steelers Nation is going to be out there in Ireland. They are going to be right there behind this team. And, man, I hope I get a chance to go. I'm the young guy on the broadcast team, so I don't get the chance to travel during the regular season. But I would love the opportunity to go out there and be a part of that because I know it's going to be electric out there.
So what we're saying is maybe we'll see you for a Guinness around fall time in Dublin.
I'm hoping so, and you better believe I'm going to start kind of making sure I put my name in the hat. Hey, hopefully somebody, hopefully I can have some longevity to be able to come out there.
Look, if you can't do it for the Steelers radio, we do play-by-play of the games ourselves, so we might need somebody who comes along and does our color commentary. We'll figure it out.
You know what? I appreciate that. Let's do
it. Before we let you go, just talk about this matchup this weekend, and particularly from a quarterback perspective. We've talked so much about Mahomes, but what he could be about to do is historic. I'm interested on the other side. Jalen Hurts plays last weekend probably his best game since the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Is that a sustainable thing going into next week? It's not the Jalen Hurts we've seen for 20 weeks of the season. Right. Last week he turned up and he absolutely showed out.
He definitely did. And I think when you look at where he's at, of course, 2 years ago, that was a long time. But when you look at just that game and the way it unfolded, they had an opportunity to go up 21 points. And they fumbled the ball and they ran it back, and that kept the Chiefs in the game at that particular point. But I think when you now get to this point, yes, he's trying to get over that hump. He has a heck of a talent. They added the piece that they thought didn't know what was going to happen, but they thought internally Saquon Barkley was going to be who he was coming off that injury, and that takes the pressure off of Jalen, right? So when you're able to get this point, and I think ultimately you don't have to go out there and do it all. Why? Because your defense is better than what it was 2 years ago. That defensive front for Philadelphia can get after Mahomes without blitzing. And if that's the case, maybe it gives you a possession or two that you can take advantage of and minimize what Patrick Mahomes is doing on the Chiefs side.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles came into that game 2 years ago with the most sacks in the NFL, and it was the whole talking point for the week.
Right.
They didn't register a single sack, and I think like 2 quarterback hits in the whole game.
Yep.
I do not see that being the case this Sunday. I think they're going to get after Mahomes. I'm excited to see
I really do.
how that plays out.
I really do. I think that's the case, and I think ultimately they're putting pressure on it. And, it's almost, kind of torn. I want to see Jalen get his first, but also I want to see Patrick go out there and try to chase history, right? And when you do that, because things that we're seeing right now, we thought that would never be done before Tom Brady did it. All of a sudden, he's doing it now, but now the next person is going to be Patrick with a chance to chase Tom Brady. If he gets this one, yes, absolutely. If he doesn't get it, I mean, Tom is going to be sitting pretty for the next 20 years. So this is where we are at this particular point. I just want to see a good game. I really do. I hope it goes down to the wire, but I ultimately think that Philadelphia pulls this one out.
Beautiful. Charlie, thank you so much for your time. So generous with it. Check out the foundation stuff, guys, as well. And then hopefully we're talking about a very exciting game in Dublin later this year.
I appreciate it. Thank you.